Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
CSEA.
I love my job just because it's such an awesome way to give back to the community. Knowing that I can help out and knowing that I do every day makes me feel great. The work that I do is shaping the community in a really positive way, and I'm really proud of that.
Winner of a New York State Emmy for Best Political Program. This is New York Now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to New York Now. I'm Matt Ryan. My partner from the Times Union, Casey Seiler, will join us at the Reporters Roundtable. We start the program off with an interview with longtime State Controller Tom DiNapoli. He sat down with our Karen DeWitt to discuss the state's finances and Startup New York, Governor Cuomo's economic initiative, which is being criticized for the number of jobs it's created since its inception.
Controller Tom DiNapoli, thanks for joining us once again on New York Now.
It's been a while, Karen, so I'm glad to be back on the show.
An annual visit, or semi-annual visit. I wanted to ask you specifically about the state's economic development programs. They've been in the news recently. The Startup Jobs Program, a report was recently released, said that only 408 jobs were created. It was kind of buried on a holiday weekend, not very good news. And you very recently audited another economic development program, the Excelsior Jobs Program. That's worth about $500 million, right? You found some problems.
Well, you know, I said several months ago we were going to step up our oversight work in this area of economic development because the state has been putting a lot of money through various programs, some that have been around for a while, like Excelsior you mentioned, some that are newer, like Startup. We have money going through the Regional Economic Development Councils as well. It's not we've gone through a tough time in terms of the jobs picture. Right after the Great Recession hit, we lost a number of jobs in the state. We're in much better shape today, so it's a good time to step back, take a deep breath and say, well, what's working? What could be doing better? What's the return for taxpayers? Because we still have too many parts of our state that aren't doing as well as they should be doing in terms of the jobs picture. So as you know, going back for a bit, we did an audit of the advertising money being spent on programs including Startup, and we found that the money really was not being spent in a way where there was any measurable outcomes, and we questioned the value of the advertising in that context.
Well, yeah, funny that you mentioned that, because the governor this week said that he thought that the startup ads were actually, he considered them generic ads just promoting New York State being open for business, and he thought it was money well spent. Do you agree with that?
Well, you know, I would suggest, especially with Startup, which was about $53 million worth of advertising, where you're trying to get businesses into a particular program, or at least investigate the option, you should have some data points to measure, you know, what's been the response, how you're targeting the advertising, have folks come in to apply to the program because of the advertising. If not, what's the purpose of the advertising?
I mean, you looked at the ads, right? They seem to be, at least from my viewing of them, clearly branded as startup. They weren't generic.
Yeah, well, and we did get some commitment from Empire State Development that they were going to put some metrics in place moving forward, you know, to measure outcomes. So, you know, look, it's a relatively new program. The numbers, I think everybody would agree, were disappointing. But, you know, there's transition in terms of leadership of that program. Again, we need to be making sure we're not just throwing money at programs without getting a return. And that was really the purpose of the Excelsior audit.
And you found that they were not really keeping good paperwork, and there were some discrepancies, correct?
Correct. Some documentation that was lacking in terms of the companies that were benefiting from the credits, a lowering of the jobs numbers in response to not doing as well as first anticipated, not clarifying certain positions, whether they were full-time or part-time, not really making clear whether jobs really were being created, which is the intent of the program, or just being shifted from another area within a region or within the state. So it really seemed to, again, be a case of, you know, tax credits, benefits are being given out, but are we really effectively measuring what the return is? And in the case of the Excelsior program, we really think they need to do a much better job to measure the return. And we put it in the overall context of all stakeholders having to evaluate how we're spending these economic development dollars. Are we doing it in the best way? Are we getting the best return? Could we be doing it better? Because we know, Karen, there are still too many communities in our state where they don't have the jobs coming back. Some communities have fewer jobs today than they did back in 08 and 09. So you've got a place like New York City, which has grown many, many jobs. Long Island, not so bad. Some other regions doing better, but let's make sure we're not throwing money at problems without getting appropriate results.
Now, Gannett newspapers outed one of the names of the companies that you audited. You guys didn't put it in your audit, but they figured out it was Chobani Yogurt, a well-known name in New York State and nationwide. Now, they have a plant that's on two sides of a street, and they applied for two different programs, the Excelsior and Empire zones. They got both. They're benefiting from them. Now, in your audit, you say it's not the company's fault that they're doing this, but that's clearly wrong. They're not supposed to be doing that, are they?
Under the requirements of the program, you can't be in both the Empire program and the Excelsior program, for the same purpose. And as you point out, the only difference, as we saw it, was a road that went through, the property. But again, I think it really speaks to the oversight of the program, and it speaks to the folks at Empire State Development, and making sure they are administering their programs in an appropriate and a fair way. And again, that's why we go back to our oversight role. We understand these are worthy purposes. We understand everybody's concerned about creating jobs and economic development, but are we doing it in the right way? And my hope would be that the agency would consider our recommendations and have a thoughtful analysis of some of the shortcomings we pointed out, instead of kind of saying, you folks don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's what I noticed reading the audit. Usually the agency in question writes a written response, and usually, frankly, they say something like, well, we already implemented that. We know all about it, and we're making improvements. They didn't really answer you in this audit. That's kind of unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, they pushed back without really answering the substance of what the audit said. Our auditors are professional. They're trained to be auditors. They have professional standards they have to abide by. They're not political appointees. These are career professionals. I stand by their work, and I find the audit has greatest value when an agency or a local government that we may be auditing takes a look at the recommendations. They may not agree with all of them, but at least give it a thoughtful discussion. And when an agency just kind of dismisses it out of hand without really responding directly to what we're raising, I don't think that's the way a thoughtful discussion of making government work better for people should be. So I would hope when some of the dust settles on some of the press coverage of these audits, including our discussion today, that the leadership of the agency will take a look at it. And I think we've made some solid recommendations for them to improve their own operations.
Yeah, because the larger question here is, do these jobs programs really ever work? And it isn't just the Cuomo administration. We saw the Pataki administration before that. That there's always criticism. It's always kind of sloppy. The promised jobs don't always come out. I mean, do you think these programs are valuable?
Look, again, I think we have to go back to where we were in 08, 09. I mean, global financial crisis, huge job losses across the state. Everybody was in a mode of saying, wow, what is this? Is this a new reality, and a very troubling one? And we lost hundreds of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars in revenue. We all know what happened. I think it made sense to keep the programs going that we had and to try some new things. But we're a few years out of that now. We've grown back, about 800,000 jobs across the state. It's a good time to start to ask those same questions. Well, what really has worked? What could we do better? And at the end of the day, many of these programs do cost a lot of money. And might those monies be better spent on, rather than targeting certain businesses? One of the things we hear from the business communities is the cost of doing business overall is very high in New York. Could some of these programs be, instead of targeting specific businesses, be done in a way that would benefit all businesses in terms of relieving some costs, perhaps relieving some regulations, doing more in terms of training programs that would prepare people, rather than targeting specific businesses, because you then get a question, well, if that business got it, how come this business didn't get it? And there are a lot of questions that have now been coming up about how some of that money was given out. So I think it's a good time to ask those questions.
But it sounds like you're leaning toward no. Maybe they're not a good idea.
I think part of our role here is to have a healthy skepticism and in a thoughtful way to take a look at what the return on the investment is for taxpayers. That's what we're doing. Ultimately, the discussion should be with the legislature, with the executive, with people in the business community, with citizens, to use our information as part of coming to their point of view about whether or not these programs should continue. At the end of the day, it's not the Controller's Office purview for us to say which programs should go, which programs should stay. But our analysis should be considered by those who would make those decisions, and we shouldn't just say because we've been putting the money here and because the program's been around that it has to continue. Maybe there are smarter and better ways to do it. We have so many different economic development programs. Sometimes you need a scorecard to keep track of all these different programs. What are we really getting for it? I think that's the bottom line.
Now, some of Governor Cuomo's economic development programs are under investigation by U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. Governor Cuomo's hired his own investigator, Bart Schwartz, to, I guess, help try to find some of the problems. Now, in order for Bart Schwartz to be paid, he needs a contract, and that has to go through your office. He was hired in late April. Have you seen a contract for him yet?
Well, as of this interview, we haven't. Any contract through an agency that's valued at $50,000 or more would have to come through our office for approval in order for payment to happen. So we haven't seen the contract yet.
So he can't be paid, though, until that happens?
Not under the normal process that one would expect would be utilized here.
Shifting gears here a moment to the Democratic National Convention. You're going, correct?
Yeah, I'm very pleased to be a delegate.
And you're for Hillary.
I've been for Hillary for a long time, and proudly so.
Why do you think that she'd make a good president?
Well, I had that experience of working with her when she was in the U.S. Senate, and this is someone who is one of the brightest people I've ever met in public life. She certainly has strong values, strong democratic and progressive values. I think her experience representing New York in the Senate was certainly a valuable experience, enhanced by her time as Secretary of State. So she has a real handle on domestic issues, obviously a familiarity with the international scene, personal relationships around the globe. And I'm pleased that from a New York perspective, we will have someone who's lived in our state for a long period of time, who knows our communities, knows how to spell Schenectady, and knows where we all come from. And I think that'll be a plus for New York. And I've always had a very, very high regard for her energy level, her commitment to making our society a better one. I'm really a big fan of hers, always have been, and I think she's well prepared to take on the responsibilities of the highest office in the land at a very, very tough and challenging time.
And the New York State delegation is going into the convention not exactly united. There's a lot of tensions between Governor Cuomo and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Now Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie has kind of gotten in, giving some pushback to Governor Cuomo. You've had your differences with Governor Cuomo. How do you see the delegation going in? Is that going to play out? You guys all have to be at events together for a whole week, right?
Well, when you started the question, I thought you were going to go into the Sanders-Clinton, because I think some of that is coming together now, especially with Bernie's
in contrast
endorsement.
to that seeming to start to come together.
I've been to conventions before, and it's a wonderful part of American political theater, and I'd like to think that what'll happen is that everybody will get into the moment and the cheering for the candidate, especially since we all know Hillary Clinton. There's a very personal connection to that. And fortunately, some of the issues that may be dividing people in New York right now aren't really going to be on the national stage. So I'm going to be hopeful that we'll be part of the celebratory moments of the convention, and we'll understand how important it is at every level, as I said before, for the party to be united in order to get Hillary elected. And we have a lot of down ballot races that are important. Congressional races, the state Senate is very much up for grabs. You have local races for assembly and judicial races across the state. So whatever these minor bumps are in various relationships, I hope we'll all come together behind the Democratic ticket from the president all the way down to the assembly races, and hopefully this convention will be part of bringing everybody together. Maybe this will be a moment for some of those strained relationships to be mended. They'll be in a nice hotel in a different city, and hopefully the press won't be asking too many difficult questions about relationships, and maybe there'll be a nice coming together.
I can't guarantee that part, but it's going to be fun. I'll be there. You'll be there. Another week.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Karen. See you in Philadelphia.
Yep.
All right, for more now on the week's news, we're going to send things over to my partner from the Times-Union, Casey Seiler.
All right, and now for some analysis of the week's news and a look ahead, I'm happy to be joined at the Reporters Roundtable by Mike Gormley of Newsday and, once again, Karen DeWitt of New York State Public Radio. So, it's summer, but apparently the political season is already upon us, at least in the thinking of Governor Andrew Cuomo, who gave what I think we can refer to as a blanket endorsement of Democratic candidates, including in the state Senate.
Well, it's kind of a question. If you follow it over 2 days, one day the governor said it was too early to talk about this, and when he was asked if he was going to support a Democratic takeover of the Senate, I'm sure he got a lot of calls after that, being that he is the head of the Democratic Party.
Fair to say.
The next day, he said he was going to be supporting Democrats. What was interesting about this, of course, was you didn't see all the tweets and all the press releases from the Democrats saying, yeah, this is what we wanted, which is what they wanted 2 and 4 years ago and didn't get. So the Democrats are saying, we'll wait to see what the governor does, if he really does help support Democrats, or if he continues his alliance, his often alliance, with the Senate Republicans.
Well, they're kind of like Charlie Brown with Lucy and the football. They've heard it again. Yes, I'm going to support you. They heard this in 2014 with the famous hostage video that the Working Families Party forced Cuomo to make, where he grudgingly said he was going to support Senate Democrats, and then he did nothing. So they're saying, yes, we'd be happy for his support. He's the head of the party, but we know how to take care of ourselves. I think, Michael, you and I both spoke to Mike Gianaris, who's the senator who's headed the campaign, saying, I'd be very happy to get his support, but essentially, we've seen this movie before, so.
2 years ago, when the governor was, of course, running for re-election, by this point in the year, I'm almost positive, he had shot that hostage video calling for its time.
June, yeah.
If we want to get our progressive agenda items through, we've got to take control of the state Senate. And I think the Independent Democratic Conference had already said yes, if the mainline Democrats manage to take over the chamber, we will realign with them. This year, you haven't heard that from Jeff Klein
yet.
yet.
And for Cuomo to say it's premature, if Jeff Klein did that in June in 2014, he could presumably do it now. But I don't think he really was getting the pressure, because one of the factors then was New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, remember, was going to help the Senate Democrats take over. He was unsuccessful in that. Now he's in all kinds of trouble related to that, with federal investigations and state investigations. So there hasn't really been the pressure until, I think, maybe some bored reporters this week started to, want to find out what the next step in the Senate Democratic race and Republican race is going to be.
I just suggest, too, that we should probably stop thinking of the Independent Democratic Conference, the 5 Democrats who broke away from the mainline Democrats. We should stop thinking of them as temporary. I think that could be a permanent situation. They're operating very effectively, very well. They've got some top people there, some good staff. It's not like they're saying, we're waiting to see who's in charge and we're going to jump that side. I don't think you're going to see that.
Well, but they could make a coalition government with them, as they have with the Republicans, and I think that's what they need to decide. Will we do a coalition government with the Democrats or the Republicans? Yeah, I agree. They're not going to just,
and of course,
disband and just be rank and file senators again. Now that they've had this power base, they're not giving it up.
And what the Senate Democrats say, what their campaign arm says, is they want to retain 2 very kind of closely held Democratic seats, and they want to pick up 2 that are currently held by Republicans. That they believe will be enough to apply sufficient pressure, coercion, however you want to put it, to bring the IDC back into the fold.
We'll see. The Senate Republicans have hung on. They're pretty tenacious. A lot of the individual senators are very popular in their own districts, and that counts for a lot. Plus, Cuomo kind of needs the Senate Republicans as a foil. I think he's afraid that if the legislature was completely Democratic, they would just run away with a lot of proposals he doesn't necessarily
2 against
want.
1.
I know, and he could be in a situation where he's vetoing things and they're overriding. We saw that back with Governor Pataki, and then the governor just looks weak. So I think he definitely does not want that.
The governor was also asked in that same Q&A on Wednesday if he would support the congressional candidacy of Democrat Zephyr Teachout, who, of course, ran against him for the Democratic primary in 2014, the aforementioned 2014. His response was, I will support the Democratic nominee for Congress in that district. The short answer is yes. I believe that stands as the least he can do.
I don't think we're going to see him and Zephyr Teachout campaigning together with him praising all of her attributes, because she really threw him for a loop in 2014. She got 1/3 of the vote in the Democratic primary, and she essentially came out of nowhere, complete unknown.
Unknown, no money. She's at the first time she jumped on the stage was the Working Families Party endorsement, the liberal arm of the Democratic Party, and that's where Governor Cuomo got a rare challenge. And as Karen was mentioning, what saved the governor there probably was the intervention of Mayor de Blasio.
Oh, how long ago that was!
I know, and he had to come in and pitch for the governor on this. The governor ended up winning the Working Families Party, which would have been a terrible loss for him.
So also this week, Republican Congressman Lamar Smith of Texas announced that he was going to hit Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's office and the Attorney General of Massachusetts, as well as some groups, with a subpoena into exploring the investigation that Schneiderman and others have launched into ExxonMobil and what they knew about climate change and the potential impacts of that company on, that global process.
Well, that's right. Schneiderman wants to treat the oil companies like the tobacco companies. And so, of course, ExxonMobil and other companies are going to fight back because the tobacco companies were nearly ruined by that. They had to pay billions of dollars in settlements. There ended up being proof that they knew smoking was harmful, yet they kept selling cigarettes. And if they prove the same thing with climate change, it's very, very bad for these companies. So, of course, they're going to get any allies they can to try to, get rid of this investigation against them.
This is just, I think, where the public starts to say, why are they wasting their time on this stuff? I mean, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman is taking a very novel and interesting approach, saying that big energy companies knew about global warming, that they had some indication they were on board with that, even as they're trying to fight regulations in Albany, or in Washington rather, and in Albany.
And in Albany, too.
And in Albany, right. And the Texas senator who's starting this, from Texas, is saying that this is just an overreach by Attorney General Schneiderman. So what we've got here basically is a Democratic-Republican fight over global warming. And the public's got to be saying, we have terrorism, right? We have all these other things going on.
Schneiderman's argument that Smith and his committee, the Republicans on the committee, are saying, well, this is a free speech issue. You're just trying to shut down global warming skeptics. And Schneiderman's response is, the tobacco companies, to borrow Karen's analogy, it's not a free speech issue if you're claiming cigarettes don't kill you, and you have research that they do.
Well, it's all about the money. That's what it comes down to. A lot of money to be lost by these companies if they found, to have known something and hid it.
And then finally, all three of us this weekend are headed to Cleveland for the GOP convention, which starts on Monday. You two are, I believe, convention veterans. I am not. This is going to be the first time for me.
Somewhat of a veteran.
What will New York Republicans hope to get out of attendance at the convention? And for those who are staying at home, what are they worried about?
Well, I suppose they hope to get a lot of nice dinners and parties, which is what happens, and just to be there to support the candidate. I'm not sure if all the New York delegates, frankly, are as enthusiastic about Donald Trump as the GOP chair, Ed Cox, is saying that they are. I think some of them have very mixed feelings about Trump, but they're going to be there to show the flag. They're going to be there to make connections. And, it's the center of the political world. It's going to be interesting, though, because a lot of top Republicans are not there. We're not going to see the up-and-coming Republicans. The Bushes aren't going. Mitt Romney, John Kasich, he's the governor of Ohio. Supposedly he's not setting foot inside the arena. So it's going to be different. I mean, anything that I can tell you about past conventions, frankly, probably will go out the window next week because it's not going to be your typical convention at all. We're all going to essentially be along for the ride, I guess, right?
Well, New York Republicans are hoping for a very dull convention, and that's been successful in the past. But one of the reasons they hope that there's no fireworks on this, or no extensive fireworks, is they're worried about down ticket. It really comes back to the Republicans' last bastion of power in New York is the Senate majority. They don't want whatever happens at the convention, they don't want Donald Trump to hurt their chances in a state where it's 2-to-1 Democratic enrollment advantage.
And Hillary Clinton is very popular, so that's a big factor. And she's going to have a really good get-out-the-vote effort, I think probably better than the Republicans and Donald Trump, who's not a professional politician. So, yeah, that's got to be their biggest worry, that nothing really embarrassing happens that could be taken over on them.
All right. Well, everybody stay safe while they're there. I will attempt to do the same. So thank you very much to Mike Gormley of Newsday and Karen DeWitt of New York State Public Radio. And now we'll kick it back to Matt at the desk.
All right, thanks, Casey. Time now for our New York Now poll question. Which national political convention are you most interested in watching? Let us know by logging on to our website right there on your screen, nynow.org. Last time out, we posed this question. What is your opinion on the recent Startup New York job numbers? And 95% said they were disastrous. Lee in Albany called the job numbers outrageous, unfair to businesses that pay their taxes, as well as genuine nonprofit organizations that provide jobs. Jerry in Avon watching on WXXI. Millions spent with very few results. And finally, Heather in Poughkeepsie said, 53 million for less than 500 jobs? Oh, come on. To vote in this week's poll, once again, our address is nynow.org. Be sure to browse around our site. You'll find past programs of ours, along with links to us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter, where our handle is @nynow_PBS. And a new feature this week. Head there right now to listen to our podcast previewing the national conventions. Casey, Karen, and I discuss coverage plans and some of the stories they'll be watching this coming week in Cleveland. We think you'll enjoy it. We'll have daily podcasts during the convention starting on Monday. And we will say goodbye today with video of gorgeous Lake Champlain. For Casey and everyone here at New York Now, I'm Matt Ryan. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on your local PBS station.
Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
Caring about people is what I do. It's in my blood. And if they need a little extra care, someone with compassion has to do it. Why not me? This makes me a better mother, a better wife, and a better person in my community.